Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1661 and today's date is September 11th, 2018, and the title of the episode is, It's All Being Coordinated at the Same Time to Transition the Country. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we are seeing really a perfect storm hit all at once, and everything is tied in, coordinated together to transition this entire country, just not economically, but transition it away from the central bank and the deep state and their plans that they've had for the last many years. And we can see it's all happening at once. Now remember, the economy, the people's economy, is breaking down at an accelerated rate. The only thing that the government, the central banks are looking at are the manipulated numbers. These numbers have been manipulated going back as far as we can tell, and as we got into 2008, they just manipulated them even more so to make it look like the economy was doing fantastically. We've gone through these numbers, we looked at it, and we can see, just like with wholesale trade, well, that is declining right now. It missed again, and they do have the ability to pump it up. The numbers come back down. They pump it up. The numbers come back down, they manipulate it, they change the calculation, they leave things out to make it look like everything is fantastic. And when we look at all this, we can see why. Because the economy is really not doing as well as everyone thinks it is doing. Now, what's very interesting about all of this is that Trump is now out there saying the economy is fantastic. And he's been saying this for quite a while. Obama came out of the woodwork, and he is out there saying, well, this was my economy, and you're riding on my coattails, basically. And the economy that you're seeing today was because of me. Now, this was all done on purpose. It was to bring Obama out into the spotlight. And if you notice, and we'll go through this in the next report, a lot of these individuals have been are being brought into the spotlight so people remember these individuals. So they see them, and he wants the mainstream media to report on them. So Trump, through everything that he's been tweeting, to counter Obama, he brought out an economist. And this economist presented all these different charts and everything to show that this economy is doing really well. Kevin Hassett came out. He's the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, and he fact-checked Obama's claim during a Monday press briefing. And he went on to say, yeah, look, everything has changed. The economy's doing well. Now remember, they're just taking the manipulated numbers, and they're making it look a lot better. Now, what this does, it shows that the economy is doing well, that Trump's plan is working. And he's doing this on purpose. He knows it's all manipulated. We know it's all manipulated. But he's making it so those in power, the central bank, the deep state, can't turn around and say he destroyed the economy. Think about it. Unemployment's at 3.9%, GDP at 4.2%, and all of a sudden you see everyone having a job, and everything looks great. How could they possibly say he destroyed the economy? It's going to be pretty darn hard. At the same time, he's weakening Obama at every turn, calling him out into the spotlight once again, and weakening him every time he opens his mouth. This is all being done on purpose. Now remember, it's just not the economy that's going to transition, it's the entire country, it's the entire government, it's the way people think, the mainstream media, everything, it's all coordinated as part of the plan. Everything has to change. And what they're going to do is they're going to cut off the deep state's funding, and that is through the central bank. Now, we can see that the mainstream media, they are nervous. They don't like what's going on. They don't like the Fed raising rates. And I continually see more and more articles where the mainstream media is saying that this is not a good time for the central bank, the Fed, to raise rates. If we look at CNBC, they came out with a headline, "The Fed thinks it's safe to keep hiking rates. It's wrong," market researcher says. They are now countering what the Fed is saying. Now, let's think about this for a second. They know if the Fed raises rates, the entire system is going to come down. Now, they were raising rates right before Trump came into office, while Trump was in office, until Powell came into office. And they were doing this because they thought they were going to bring down the economy while he was in office. They were going to give him some time. They were going to let him, push his tariffs through and things like that. And then they were going to drop the economy and say, see, it's his fault. But remember, Trump already tweeted out he has the magic wand now. He can make the economy look any way he wants, just like they did in the past. And that was a message to Obama and the deep state, that they're in full control. The mainstream media right now, they're out there and they're nervous about what is happening because they lost that narrative. They lost the narrative where they can say Trump was the cause of the economy collapsing. Now, we've said this in the past. The central bank system that we're in today only lasts 40 to 45 years, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how you stretch it out. And of course, what they do is they go back in time and they say, oh yeah, by the way, we were in a recession about 2 years ago. We just didn't let you know. And today, people who are out of work, people who are trying to look for work, people who are trying to sell their house, they notice that things are changing quite quickly right now. Retail sales are declining. We see GDP numbers. We know this is fake. Manufacturing is declining. Yes, Trump is trying to bring all this back. This is for the transition. But if we look at the CNBC article, it goes on to say the Federal Reserve is widely expected to hike rates again at its September meeting in 2 weeks. Another in a string of anticipated increases through the next year. The central bank needs to slow its roll to avoid breaking the economy, says James Bianco. Now, they're making the case that the Fed is moving too quickly with these rates. Now, this was planned a while ago, before Powell was in there, and they were planning to continually raise them until it fell apart, but blame it on Trump. I do believe that Powell is now working for Trump, and he's doing exactly what the Fed was planning to do before, what the deep state was planning to do before. Raise the interest rates to bring down the system. It's going to choke the real estate market. It's going to choke the student loan market. It's going to choke the auto loan market. It's going to choke the bank-to-bank lending market. It's going to choke pretty much everything when the Fed raises the rates. And remember, the Fed raises the rates, it affects pretty much everything. And if things start to decline, all those companies, all those banks that have been buying back their shares, they're going to be in trouble. This is why you see the articles coming out today in the mainstream media where we have Bernanke, we have Geithner, we have Paulson, and all the rest saying that maybe the Fed should buy stocks right now. They're trying to think of ways of where they can prop up this system and make sure it's not blamed on the Fed. That's what this is all about. But it's not going to work. Their entire system is going to start to fall apart. And it will be blamed on the Fed. We can see how it's all being set up right now. The Fed is going to raise rates in September, probably once again in December. And once that hits, we're going, and remember, we showed the charts where if it reaches close to 3%, everything starts to implode. And we're getting very close to this. If they raise the rates 2 more times, we're going to be pretty darn close to this, and we're going to see things really fall apart. The real estate market is going to just implode on itself. Already, we're seeing traffic drying up in many, many areas where there's just nobody looking anymore. Yes, there are certain areas, I know people are going to write in that, well, in my area, they're still strong. Yes, there's still going to be areas where it is strong. We saw this back in 2008, or prior to 2008, where the New York metropolitan area, they were seeing traffic pretty much dry up. In Miami, during the same period of time, they were still building. Speculators were still down there. But 6 to 8 months later, what happened? Everything fell apart. And who was hit even harder than the New York metropolitan area? The southern Florida area. And we saw this in California where people were just leaving their houses. So just because you're in the United States, it doesn't mean it all happens at the same exact time. Certain areas get hit at different times. And then it's like a domino effect. And then all of a sudden, it hits all the other areas. And that's what we're going to see. And we're seeing everything come to a screeching halt. As they raise the rates, it's going to get worse and worse. This again is planned. This is on purpose. This is to get us out of the central banking system. This is why tariffs are being put into place to keep corporations in this country, trying to make it worthwhile to stay here. Now, is that enough? Well, no. Ford is saying, listen, we're not going to move operations back to the United States because guess what? It's not cost effective. Yes, it isn't cost effective yet because you have to remember over the many, many years, what is the central bank, what is the deep state have done? They have made it so it's impossible to come back to the U.S. And the only way to get people, and I'm talking about these corporations, back to the U.S., you have to force them. Because if we don't bring the corporations back here with manufacturing, the country's kind of doomed. Because if we go through this transition and these companies aren't looking to come back, what is the U.S. going to be? We don't have the petrodollar anymore. We're not the reserve currency. It will be a disaster, and we need manufacturing so we can trade. And we need to bring these corporations back. That is the plan. This is why all these tariffs are being put into place. It's not to start a trade war. It's not to start a war with the central bank. It's to destroy the central bank, to destroy the globalist system, to wipe out their trade system, a centralized one world trade system where they control everything. Instead, diversify. Bilateral trades all over the place. China's doing it. Russia's doing it. It's going to be the way of the world with the Belt and Road. And if you look at what's happening right now, you can see that the U.S. is getting prepared for this. And eventually what's going to happen is the globalist system, just like TPP, just like NAFTA, I think that's going to have to go through many more revisions or just get rid of it altogether. And the World Trade Organization, all these things are going to have to go. This is why Trump is out there continually making his threats that he might have to remove the U.S. from the World Trade Organization. And when he says this, he's dropping the breadcrumbs to get people used to the idea. And they normally do this months in advance where they say, listen, we're going to be removing ourselves from TPP. We're going to renegotiate NAFTA. We're going to get rid of the World Trade Organization. They always drop some breadcrumbs to get the American people used to this idea that this is coming. The deep state used the same type of strategy, but on a different playing field where they were planning to do a lot of harm to this country and to the rest of us, and they got us prepared with all different types of messages. So what we're seeing right now is a coordinated plan to transition the country economically, to transition the country politically and geopolitically. It's all going to happen at the same time. This is the storm. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.